Hello everyone, this is part 8 of What If Naruto Was Reborn as a Shinigami, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Naruto was not looking forward to this conversation. He'd been taking into account what Tenten had told him, and it was true that he had never trained or worked much with another team before. Team Kakashi, despite the differences, had teamwork down to an art form for the most part. It would be difficult to convince Tsunade to separate them with their success rate, and he wasn't even sure if he wanted to now. Perhaps it would be best to just approach this like he did everything else in life, just grin and bear it. He'd put up with them for years, what could a few more matter? Hopefully his sanity would hold out before he just killed them outright. He heard people whispering on the street and stopped to look at them. They seemed to be looking at him in fear and surprise. He couldn't figure out what the problem was until his chains screeched against each other. He looked up and saw them serpentining in the air. He had been so lost in thought that he had accidentally activated them by pushing chakra into them. His agitated state did nothing to curb their restlessness, and he pulled the chakra out forcibly, causing the chains to wrap quickly back around his arms. He turned to the wide-eyed bystanders and gave them a foxy grin and a shrug before continuing on his way. Great. One more instance for them to hate me. Sighing to himself in defeat, he continued on his way to the Hokage Tower, to plead his case with Tsunade. He hoped that she'd at least give him a chance. Denied. Naruto growled low and hung his head. The negotiations had not gone as planned. She had shot down every argument he had, never raising her voice. But before their talks even began, she had asked him what the chains were for. When he told her what they could do, she had demanded a demonstration. Naruto had grinned and sent the chains into the air, snaking around her desk, opening the drawer, and getting out her bottle of sake. Tsunade had sat there with a dumbfounded look on her face before demanding her sake back. Thinking back, perhaps breaking her bottle against the wall had been a strike against him. Probably had been a bad idea. Definitely was a bad idea. It wasn't his fault, the damn things seemed to be developing a mind of their own, kind of like his shadow clones. The more he used them and the less he had to actually command them, the more independent they became. Before Tenten had found him that morning, he had been using shadow clones to perfect his control over them. The results had been as she found him. He had to concentrate only when in battle, really. This train of thoughts wasn't getting him anywhere at the moment, however. He let out an aggravated breath and looked her in her eyes. Why? Tsunade leaned back in her chair and steepled her fingers together. After Kakashi's little talk with her, she had been very dissatisfied with Team 7. She knew Naruto had every right to demand a transfer, but the team had too much of a success record to break him up. They were one of her better teams and they were missing an original member. Sai had proven a good replacement, when he wasn't playing double agent for her with Danzo. Or at least she hoped he was. The boy could very well be playing her against Danzo. It wasn't a comfortable position. Because the three of you make a good team. Add Sai into the mix and you're a great team. And with Kakashi and Yamato switching in and out of a leadership role, your team needs to be a cohesive unit. I'm sorry Naruto, I really am, but I can't afford to break up a team such as yours. Not with the track record you guys have. It's not very often you guys fail, glaring exceptions aside. I have to think about what is best for the village. What about a one-time exception? Please Tsunade, I don't know how much longer I can take the two of them. I know I'm being hypocritical, since saving Sasuke was my main goal in life for quite a while, but we all have to grow up sometime. I just want to move on. The guy doesn't want to be saved, and personally, I'm more than willing now to let him rot. Tsunade narrowed her eyes and leaned forward, her chin now on her hands. Naruto, let me make this clear. I will not separate the three of you. I can't afford to. And if one of your missions states that you will take up a chance to find Sasuke, you will do it. You can grumble and GSE all you want, but, as a soldier under my command, you will do as you are told. Understood. Naruto stood and bowed. He wasn't happy with this development, although he was sure that the other two would be. He couldn't blame Tsunade for this, no matter how much he wanted to. Still, he asked for so little in this village. What was this one request? Hi, Hokage-sama. I understand crystal clear. Tsunade's eyes widened when she heard the honorific and the tone. She couldn't remember the last time the boy had been so pissed, and it was, in truth, frightening. Naruto's voice could reach terrifying levels just by sounding normal. His usual bright demeanor made his seriousness all the more pronounced, and the silver glow to his eyes didn't help a bit. Before she could say anything, he was out the door, off to do whatever. Tsunade winced when she heard the door downstairs blow wide open. Actually, blown off its hinges would be a more accurate statement. Naruto, in his mental state and haste, had neglected to turn the knob and had pushed the door out into the street, sending citizens scurrying. She watched from the window as he stalked down the street, his chains once again entwining around him. No one, no matter how much they hated him, would bother him in that state. Her eyes drooped into sadness and she slumped into her chair. Shizune had listened to the whole argument through the door. It wasn't hard since the two blondes were very vocal and she had to admit that she had sided with Naruto. However, Tsunade's arguments were valid as well, and in the end, her master had done what was best for Konoha, no matter how much she disagreed. Shizune stepped into the room and poured her master a cup of tea in lieu of her broken sake bottle, which Tsunade was currently mourning. Lady Tsunade, why didn't you just let him transfer? You could have sent him to Anbu or something. He's not happy where he is. Tsunade looked up at her assistant and bade her to close the door. She took a sip of tea and it calmed her slightly. Perhaps discussing the turn of events with Shizune would bring clarity to her own decisions. No matter how much he was right, I had to do what was best for the village. The village still puts the retrieval of the Uchiha on a very high priority to-do list, and Kakashi's team has been tasked with that since they know him best. Naruto knows him well, and since he's fought him repeatedly, he's the best for the team. I can't deny that, and neither can you. No, but his happiness should be taken into consideration as well. He has a lot on his shoulders and he asks for so little. It seems he's procured a mature mindset at a very inopportune time. Yes, it would seem so. My apprentice still hasn't let go of her childishness, and Kakashi still pines for his ideal student. Want to know something? If Naruto had Sakura's control, I would have taken him as a student alongside Jiraiya. Enthusiasm and a willingness to learn such as his only come around once in a great while. He has no motivation to learning other than to get strong enough to protect everyone, and he has no underlying motive. He has every reason to get stronger to destroy this village, and yet bears them no malice. He's the perfect student, and I can't teach him anything. And yet, he can't learn anything. What do you mean? Tsunade sighed again and reached to refill her cup. She smiled when Shizune did it automatically. What would she ever do without her young counterpart? Naruto seems to have an inability to learn anything that isn't dangerous or outright forbidden. Look at the shadow clones. Look at the Rasengan. Look at Kuchiyos. He doesn't have many techniques, but the ones he does possess are powerful. And he uses them to full effect. What would be a detriment to others is his greatest strength. Likely, he's taken a negative and turned it into a positive. And now he has that hammer and those chains. And those eyes, I nearly pissed myself when I looked into them. I hope they never turn pure silver. Why? Because it's like looking into a mirror and all you see is your own ugliness and unfairness. It was like he was projecting his disappointment and pain into me. But Naruto would never do anything maliciously like that. No, he wouldn't. But what if he didn't know he was doing it? It was kind of like the paralysis jutsu, except I had free rein to move. I just couldn't. Sadness and disappointment seemed to permeate the air. I just hope I made the right decision. Shizune smiled and picked up the cups. Their discussion was over. I'm sure things will work out in the end. Naruto always has a way of turning things around. I hope you're right. Do me a favor please and send for Kakashi and Sakura. Since they got their way, I want to lay down a few ground rules to them. Shizune nodded and made her way out of the office. There would surely be more shouting soon. Naruto only wanted one thing at the moment, and that was Tenten. If she couldn't calm him down, no one could. He had searched everywhere for her and couldn't find her. It was infuriating. He'd eventually given up and stalked off to the training grounds with the intent to destroy an acre or two. It was there that Tenten found him, mindlessly attacking things with his chains. She'd been quite put out that he had to go see the Hokage and secretly wished that he would get what he wanted. Seeing his state at the moment, she guesses correctly that the opposite had indeed happened. She had gone home and taken a shower so that when she did see him eventually, she wouldn't smell like a sweatsock factory. Not that she thought he actually minded. He just liked to tease her. Seeing him in the state he was in now frightened her and saddened her at the same time. It just wasn't natural for the bright and sunny blonde to be so distraught. Naruto knew she was standing at the edge of the clearing and knew that his current frame of mind was keeping her from coming over. His chains were whipping everywhere and he had left his hammer in the middle of the clearing in favor of causing destruction with his hands. Tearing things apart with his fingers was always satisfying. He tried to calm himself down so that he could talk to her and his rage just grew. He was being childish but he couldn't help it. No, scratch that, he could help it, he just didn't care at the moment. He wanted to be childish and immature about the situation. Maybe for once, someone would take pity on him and dote all over him. He'd forgotten who Tenten was, however. The more she watched him, the more pissed the weapons mistress got. It was obvious now that he was ignoring her, and there was nothing she hated more than being ignored. Neji did enough of that to her when she was younger and Naruto wasn't about to start now. With fury blazing in her eyes, she marched forward and grabbed the Jinchuriki by the shoulder, spinning him around so that he had to look at her. The cold look in his eyes nearly startled her from her purpose, but she was too far gone to be beaten back by a look. She would not be ignored. What do you want, Tenten? I'm kind of in a bad mood right now. I can see that, dumbass. I'm here to get you out of your funk. Let's go do something. Not interested. She narrowed her eyes and gritted her teeth. Excuse me. Not interested. Who in the hell do you think you are? Please, Tenten, just go away. I don't want to fight right now. Well, too bloody bad. You've got to fight now. I hate being ignored, Naruto, and you know that. Now you're going to tell me what's wrong or I'm going to beat it out of you. Go away, Tenten. I don't want to talk right now. She produced a sword from nowhere and began to circle him, sneering the whole while. I suggest you start talking then if you don't want to be cut to pieces. I'm tired of being told to go away by guys I like. I'm tired of being treated like dirt and I'm changing that with you. Now start talking. No. She darted in and cut his shirt across the belly. The chains had been distracted by his anger and hadn't reacted in time. She immediately retreated outside of range and continued circling. Talk. No. She darted in again and went to slash his shoulder only to be stopped by the chains. Having her sword blocked presented no problem as she let a few senbon fly and they hit him in the arm. He grunted and pulled them out. Just go away please. You already know what happened. I don't want to talk about it. Her answer was to continue to hack away at him. Soon enough her weapon was knocked away and he retracted his chains and they began to brawl. Not fight, not spar, brawl. They just walked in and started throwing punches. Even Guy and Lee would have winced at the heavy thumps of fists on F. Not being in the best frame of mind proved disastrous for Naruto as she destroyed him. They were both beginning to tire, Naruto mentally and Tenten physically, when she swept his legs out from under him. He grabbed her waist on the way down and pulled her on top of him. They tussled for a few moments before she pinned his arms and glared at him. He returned the look with equal ferocity as she ground out the first words spoken in several minutes. Stupid idiot. And out of the blue she had leaned down quickly and locked lips with him, making his eyes go wide before he returned the forceful kiss with equal fervor. They were both competitive by nature, so soon a simple kissing contest became a full-blown make-out session. Somehow they had ended up rolling toward his hammer and Naruto had disengaged them both and pulled himself into a sitting position with Tenten half sitting, half laying in his lap. They were both bruised and battered, although his would go away soon enough. She just laid in his embrace as he ran his hands up and down her arms. The sensation was both relaxing and spine-tingling. But he still hadn't answered her question. So, how did it go? Naruto sighed and shook his head. He didn't want to speak at the moment, still not trusting his voice. I'm sure that Lady Tsunade had a good reason for not letting you transfer. Naruto grunted. Tenten frowned. She's just looking out for what's best for you, Naruto. You and the village. It's not like you've ever worked with another team before. Yes, I have. When we went to retrieve Sasuke the first time, We were a very good team and we'd never worked together before. Shikamaru makes an excellent troop leader. That's beside the point. You all worked well together because you had a common goal and it was a high priority mission. None of you wanted to disappoint yourselves or Shikamaru. Still, I just wanted to get away from those two. Tenten sighed and shuffled against him more. How in the hell was the boy always so warm? It's for the best, Naruto. Just do the missions you're assigned to do and when you get back, go your separate ways. You don't have to like them to do a mission. You didn't get along with Sasuke all those years ago and you did fine. Just continue on like normal. She looked up to his face as he gazed down and she smiled at him. Besides, when you get back you've got me waiting for you. Isn't that reward enough? Naruto chuckled and wrapped his arms around her and squeezed. I guess it's an okay consolation prize. Tenten slugged him in the arm and turned around, huffing and crossing her arms. Jackass. Naruto laughed and pulled her against him. She didn't struggle, she liked the sensation too much. Or, you like it. So, where we going tonight? X. Kakashi and Sakura had been summoned not long after Naruto left and they now stood in front of Tsunade wondering why they'd been called. Tsunade sat in her classic pose, chin on her folded hands, looking from one to the other. She, herself, was not particularly happy with her decision and seeing Naruto unhappy was not something she liked being the cause of. Besides, when that boy was unhappy, bad s happened. It used to be pranks on a grand scale, but now, who knew what he'd do? She hardened her gaze, making the two flinch. I want you two to sit down and don't speak unless I direct you to. Kakashi and Sakura nodded and sat in the chairs before her desk. Whatever was about to be said was important, and neither one wanted to get in trouble for insubordination. Tsunade sighed and began to rub her temples, trying to alleviate the growing pain. All right, look, I took your arguments into consideration and then I allowed Naruto to have a chance to persuade me. I've listened to both and I've come to a conclusion that your team will stay together. Kakashi visibly relaxed in his seat and Sakura had a small smile on her face. At least their team would remain whole, even if one of the members was unwilling. Naruto was a vital part of the team and if he wasn't there, the whole thing might as well disband. Kakashi sat up straight again and coughed into his hand. Tsunade-sama, I'm happy that you agreed to keep our team together, but what did Naruto think of this? He seemed pretty upset with us last time we spoke with him. Naruto was not at all happy with the arrangements but he reluctantly agreed to stay on with you. Now then I wish to discuss your team's goals for the future. Tsunade watched as the two stiffened again. She had neglected to mention that she had more or less forced Naruto to agree to this. I want you two to know that I agree with Naruto that Sasuke is no longer a top priority with Konoha. He is a missing nin and as such, he is a candidate for the Hunter Corps to chase after. But Tsunade-sama, I said wait until I was finished. As I was saying. Sasuke is no longer your top priority. Team 7 will continue their missions as one of my top frontline teams. With Naruto's skills in heavy combat and currently demolition, Kakashi's leadership and Sharingan, Sai's espionage, and Sakura's medic skills, you will carry out the missions I give you. You will not seek out the Uchiha unless directed otherwise. That is all. Clear. Kakashi and Sakura nodded grimly. They wanted to say more but with the mood Tsunade was in right now they knew that arguing would be futile and detrimental to their health. The two left without a backward glance and walked off together to celebrate their victory. Hopefully, their blonde teammate wouldn't be too sore about all this. Currently, said blonde was engrossed in conversation with Tenten at Ichiraku's. The two had foregone eating that evening and had opted for an early dinner and then retiring later to Tenten's apartment to watch a movie, or play a game, or whatever. Tenten had been growing more and more impressed with Naruto as the days went on. Before his near-death experience, he would have been slurping the noodles like there was no tomorrow. Now, he ate with dignity and it was a welcome change. She was beginning to think that the angel had not actually given Naruto cognitive thought, so much as opened his eyes to all the things that he did wrong. And she liked it. Naruto was passing the time between idly chit-chatting with his dinner companion and wondering at himself for eating so daintily. Well, daintily for him. He'd only consumed 4 bowls so far. Hey Naruto, what do you think about us? The blonde coughed on some noodles and slammed his fist into his chest. The scene was so comical, Tenten couldn't help but laugh. Once he'd caught his breath, Naruto turned shakily to her. What do you mean us? There is no us yet. Tenten batted her eyelashes at him and turned back to her ramen. Best to let him stew over what she was offering. No, not yet, but there can be if you want. And she left that hanging there in the air. The rest of the dinner was quiet, save for Ayami talking animatedly to Tenten, and Yuki picking on Naruto for not taking the bun-haired girl up on her offer. Once they were both done, they walked to Tenten's apartment to continue their evening. The whole way, Naruto was in deep thought and Tenten was congratulating herself for getting his mind off his problems, if only for a little while. As soon as the door was closed, Tenten dragged him into the living room and pushed him onto the couch and walked out of the room, leaving a slightly confused Naruto. Tenten immediately retreated to her bedroom and shut the door. What the hell was she doing? She was teasing the poor boy relentlessly. What if he took her up on her offer? She paused and thought for a moment on that and a smile crossed her face. Yes, what if he took her up on her offer indeed? What were the possible downsides to dating a really powerful, really handsome guy? Besides the fact that the entire village would ostracize her for having a relationship with the demon brat, there weren't really any. But ninjas were already a socially inept group, relying on each other for support. Not like she really cared what the civilian populace ever thought. Naruto sat on the couch weighing his options. Their dinner had gone on for quite a while. In between talking to Tenten and chatting it up with the Ichirakis had taken up several hours worth of time. The father and daughter combo were simply pleasant people and anyone could lose time talking to them. Would going steady with Tenten be a good thing? Sure, they'd fooled around and made out, she was a huge tease, but dating her, he didn't want her to get hurt. It was bad enough the villagers didn't like him. He didn't want her to be pushed aside by society for having a relationship with him. But then again, if she wanted a relationship with him, she knew the risks involved. Yeah, he'd definitely go steady with her if that's what she wanted. Naruto began to get bored waiting for Tenten to come out of her bedroom and so had summoned Gamasuke for a game of Go. The little toad was fast becoming one of his favorite summons. Gamakichi was just too damned big now to fit into the tiny apartment, so his younger relative would have to suffice. It was to this game that Tenten walked out. Tenten had decided that she'd change into her night clothing, sweats and a tank top. She saw that Naruto had pulled her coffee table out and was sitting in front of the couch with his legs crossed, while Suki sat on the table, mulling over his move choices. She smiled and walked behind Naruto, sitting on the couch with him in between her legs. She didn't know how long she'd been in her bedroom, but it had been long enough for the two of them to get pretty far in a game. Wrapping her arms around Naruto's shoulders, she was greeted by a happy sigh. Take care of whatever you had in there. For the most part. What you're doing. Losing to a frog, toad, amphibian. I suck at this game. So, what's this about being my girlfriend? I wanted to know what you think first. Naruto shrugged and tried a pincer move on the little toad. You know who and what I am. You know the risks involved. If you want to be with me, I'd be honored. How are we going to let everyone know though? Tenten smiled as she slid down beside him, put his face in her hands. I think we'll let them figure it out on their own. She captured his lips in her own and had just begun to slip her tongue inside his mouth when her clock rang out and the boy slumped over on top of her. Tenten hefted his weight off her and cursed at the wretched instrument. Damn clock. You're truly against me, aren't you? Oh well, we'll continue this in the morning. She left him lying on the floor and went to her nice comfy bed. Sanosuke had warned her he'd be out like a light. Why did it have to happen when she was making out with him though? Gamasuke sat on the table wondering what the hell happened. Deciding that his summoner and his girlfriend were the weirdest humans he'd ever met, he dismissed himself. He'd ask for his candy next time. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.